Oh, hi, sorry. I'm just waiting for my flight. Did you know that Pan Am was the first to connect North and South America by air and to create commercial flights across the Pacific and the Atlantic? It's crazy. So, join me in this 3 things I like about Pan Am, and maybe you'll become an entrepreneur yourself, investing in Pan Am stock to win the game. 3 things I like about Pan Am. 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 There's so much to like about Pan Am, but I will talk about the 3 things that I like the most and explain the game just a little bit so you can get a good idea of how cool this game is. The first thing I like about Pan Am is how you get to place your workers into action spaces and how each space really does a very different thing and even operates in a pretty unique fashion. So depending on the amount of players in the game, you are going to get a certain number of engineers. Those are your workers. So if you have, let's say, a 3-player game, you are working with 4 engineers. Now let's say you're the first player. You're going to place your engineer in the space that you want to pay if there is a number inside of the little cog. Now, if there is a number, that means that someone can outbid you. What you're saying is, I will pay this number of money when it comes around to that action if I am the highest placed engineer. Let's say I put one of my engineers on the lowest space at the airports. That means I'm willing to pay $3 to place an airport. Now someone else can come along because we go in turn order placing 1 engineer at a time, and in a 3-player game we have 4 engineers. Someone could come along after me and outbid me. They place their engineer on the space above mine or any space above it, depending on how much they're willing to pay, and then I get my engineer back to place on a later turn as we continue around the table. That's really cool. So if there's a number, you essentially can outbid someone and then it kicks back their engineer. There are several locations on the board that do this: the airports, the destinations, and the planes. And there are different numbers listed in each of those spaces, so be careful that you are bidding what you are willing or capable of paying. At the end of the round, once everyone's placed their engineers, we will resolve the phase in alphabetical order, meaning we will resolve the airports first, A, then we'll go to destinations B, then we'll go to planes, C. And so if you are bidding too much money and you're not able to pay, then you're going to have to sell stock. And that is, what a bummer. You're going to have to pay back your stock and earn what it is -2. Not a good deal. So you need to be really careful about being able to pay for things and knowing what you are allocating for your engineers. The D space and the E space function a little differently. You can place as many engineers there as there are spaces, and in the order that they're placed is what you resolve them in. So if you place your engineer at the very beginning of the line in the routes space in D, you are going to be able to build a route before anyone else in that particular row. You can even have multiple engineers in the route space. So I can build a route, then someone else goes, and then if I have another engineer there, they're third, then I get to go again and build another route. That's cool. Again, you can build multiple routes per turn if the spaces are available, and you go in the order in which you place your engineer. So many people can go in that space. You don't kick anyone out like you do for the previous 3 spaces. And lastly, the directives space. This is also in priority order, meaning first person there lines up at the left, and everyone who wants to place an engineer, which could be the same person with multiple engineers, you get to draw a card. These are the directive cards. And not only do you get to draw a directive card, which gives you something really cool and special and unique, you also get priority placement in the next round. The very first person that is in the directive space gets to go before the first player marker in the next round. And so you really get priority access, which is so cool. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. It kind of feels like boarding a plane. It feels so thematic, and it is a huge advantage. So you could actually put 2 engineers in the directive space and place first because you have the first player turn marker, and you could put 3 engineers out on the board before anybody even gets to go. That's a possibility. I love the way you place your workers, which again are your engineers, into all of these spaces to gain what you need to gain, to pay what you need to earn the bonuses that you need in the game to succeed. It's just so cool. The second thing that I like about Pan Am is how there is variety in the round events. There are 7 rounds in the game, and each one of those has 4 cards that start each round. You select 1 card at the beginning of the game from each round, and you stack them on top of each other. So when you flip over the round 1 event, that was just one of 4 possibilities that tells you how many dice to roll, that shows the expansion of Pan Am across the board, and Pan Am eats up existing routes, paying you dividends, which is really great. And it also just expands across the board, kind of showing its global kind of conquest of these air flight routes. The other thing that it does is it allows players to have an event. You might lose money, you might gain money, you might gain destination cards, you might have the possibility to do several things, maybe buy an airport for a particular price. These are really cool events, and I like that. The other thing that these cards do is it sets the stock price for Pan Am. Now at the end of each round, you have the possibility of buying any number of stocks that you can afford. And that's where the gameplay is just the coolest. And just naturally leads into my third thing I like about Pan Am is that this game never forgets that it's a stock game. So when you're at the end of the round, and you have a certain number of money income that you have gained that round. You have gotten money from money on destination cards. You have maybe earned money for placing your airplanes down and creating routes. Whatever it is, you have this money, and you have to think about saving some money for the next round because you may not be able to place anything where there's cost requirements. I mean, you can't just bank on getting a 0 destination card, meaning that you pay nothing for it. People might really want that destination card and bid $2 or bid $4 or $6 because they really need that destination to complete a route. So you don't want to be penniless at the end of the round because you invested in too much stock, but you also have to remember that the final score is simply stocks. How many stocks do you have invested in Pan Am? Period. Full stop. And so you have this fascinating round by round change or flux of how much Pan Am stock costs. And so you might get in while it's $3 and get a couple stocks, but then when it goes to 5 or 6, you're like, ooh boy, that's like, maybe I made a mistake last round, or it just costs too much to invest in too many stocks at that time. There's a wonderful balance of spending your money to buy stocks, but then spending your money to invest in routes and airports and destination cards and planes. You're not able to create a route if you don't have a plane that matches the number on the line. The destination from one city to the next has a number between it, and it says 1, 2, 3, or 4. There are 4 different kinds of planes you can invest in. The little bitty guys that are 1 all the way to the big jets, and those are 4. You can always put a bigger plane on a smaller route, but you really want to get those bigger planes, the 3s and 4s, onto the 3 and 4 routes because that's where you get a lot of money, and that's where you can really see your income generating and your investment in Pan Am just skyrocketing. So I think there's so much to like about this game simply because there's just an abundance of choice, there's just the right amount of player interaction, and there's a high level of replayability and unpredictability in the event cards that begin each round. I'm leaving out a whole bunch. One thing that I'm leaving out is just how gorgeous these destination cards are. They're all unique. While they are color-coded to the region that they belong to, each individual image on a city card has a recognizable icon or imagery that represents that particular city. And it's just gorgeous. I love the artwork, and I love the way that that's depicted. This game is just really cool. I like it a lot. I think you have to play a time or two to understand that not all is lost. Just from personal experience, there was a round, I think it was round 2, where I could not feasibly invest in any stock. And I sat there and watched my opponents buy 1 stock, 2 stock, and I'm like, I'm behind. The whole game is about stocks. I don't have enough stock, and I don't know how I can not only catch up to them, but surpass them to make up the difference. And so the game allows for players to do that. And it may not seem obvious at first, and it may not feel intuitive, but I think that this game is just so balanced and allows players to take a lot of different routes to victory. And it's just impressive. The group I play with, we all have very different styles of play. I watch them play and I think, I would never have made that decision, or I would never have prioritized that above this. And I know they're looking at me thinking the same thing too. And what's funny is we all come within 1, 2, or 3 points of each other at the end. We are all in a nice grouping that to me shows we were really trying to work that puzzle of how can I really maximize my investments on the board in my airplane company to then be bought out by Pan Am and invest in their stock and just get that victory. And I saw us being so successful and really wanting the win and feeling confident in our own strategy. And if that's not fun, I don't know what is. This is a great hour to an hour and a half stock game with worker placement, and it's just good. And you'll just really feel satisfied at the end. I felt satisfied at the end of this game, and it just made me feel like, yeah, that's what I want for game night. Pan Am did it for me. So, thanks for joining me for 3 things I like about Pan Am. Give it a try yourself, and hopefully you'll see what I really like about it and enjoy it yourself. I'll catch you next time. 3 things I like about Pan Am. 3 things I like about Pan Am. 3 things, 3 things, 3 things. Pan Am.